Kinji wishes he had a normal life, but instead, he attends a school that trains Butei, mercenaries that help stop the overabundance of crime in Japan, for a fee, of course. Late for class, Kinji races to school on his bike after missing the bus. But this isn't a regular bike ride by any means. He's being pursued by an automated Segway, equipped with a loudspeaker and an Uzi. And his bike? It has a bomb strapped to the bottom of the seat. It doesn't look good for Kinji, until a girl with pigtails wearing a school uniform jumps off a building, paragliding towards him while firing 2 handguns at the Segway. The bike explodes as the girl grabs Kinji just in time. Upon waking up, Kinji finds his face buried in the chest of the girl who saved him. From the tag on the inside of her uniform, he discovers that her name is Aria Kanzaki. She comes to, accusing him of being a pervert, but her outburst will have to wait. At least 7 more Uzi-wielding Segways appear and start firing at the pair. Kinji tries to keep his blood pressure low, to no avail. He enters into a state he calls hysteria mode, which changes his whole demeanor from shy and nervous to overconfident and condescending. He effortlessly takes out the Segways, telling Aria it's her reward for saving him, even calling her princess, which he regrets immediately after his blood pressure goes down. To his surprise, Aria is in the same class as him, and to the class's surprise, she returns the belt he lent her earlier. Upon returning to the dorm, Kinji finds Aria's suitcase in his room. She confronts him, declaring that Kinji is now her slave. Aria immediately starts ordering him around. Butei need to be careful of 3 things: the dark, poison, and women, according to Kinji. After getting Aria breakfast, she commands him to join the assault course so they can run missions together. He refuses since he just switched out of assault and is planning on transferring from the Butei Academy in Tokyo to a regular school. She retorts that there are 3 words she hates: can't, tired, and tedious, of which he is never allowed to say around her again. If he refuses, she'll stay at his place indefinitely. With that, she kicks him out. He sneaks back in to find Aria in the bath when Shirayuki knocks on the door. Shirayuki freaks out when Kinji confirms her suspicion that he was involved in the bike incident, and she vows to find the culprit. Shirayuki gives him more of the food she made, saying that she's like his wife, to which he replies, "Okay," only getting her hopes up. Kinji is violently woken up the next morning by Aria, demanding that he make her breakfast. He refuses, causing her to attack him again. Kinji trades Riko, a classmate, for information about Aria's past. He finds out she's half British and from a noble family. She holds an S rank, the highest in the Butei. She also never lets anyone go, the exception being Kinji. According to her, she should arrest him for being a pervert. Aria finds out that he's only rank E because he didn't take the exams, but his entrance exams earned him an S ranking. Kinji finally agrees to take assault as an elective. Riko gives Kinji a pass for the arcade. Everyone is excited to see Kinji return to the assault course, but he insists he's only taking it as an elective to join Aria's group for a single mission and then he's out. When Kinji decides to use the voucher instead of going to class, Aria appears behind him, and everyone leaves. Aria begins to follow Kinji despite his protests. He tries to lose her, but she's persistent, noting that Kinji seems to be popular, while everyone avoids her. It's Aria's first time at an arcade, which becomes obvious when she's unable to win anything at the claw machine. Kinji steps in to show her how it's done, and wins 2 cat plushies, both of which she names Leopold, offering one to Kinji as a reward for his achievement. That night, Kinji notices his watch is 5 minutes ahead and resets it before he goes to bed. The next morning, he marvels at how easy it is to get ready on time without Aria around. But when he goes to catch the bus, it passes him by. A girl on the bus receives a phone call alerting the students of a bomb on board. One of Kinji's friends, Muto, recognizes the similarities between the bus hijacking and Kinji's bike bombing when a remote-controlled sports car drives beside the bus and opens fire, using an Uzi just like the Segways. Aria calls Kinji and they race to catch up to the bus in a black SUV. She goes on to explain that it's the Butei Killer, and by solving this case, he will have fulfilled his end of the bargain. The students open fire when they enter a dark tunnel, but they are gunned down instantly. It's no ordinary camera, it's equipped with a heat sensor. Aria and Kinji catch up, taking out the Uzi and driving alongside the bus, jumping on to find and disarm the bomb. Aria finds the bomb under the bus while hanging off the back. She says she can disarm it with Kinji's help, but he's on top of the bus trying to remove the transmitter device when another sports car shows up. The heat sensor locks onto Kinji and fires. Aria jumps into action and saves Kinji while taking out the car. With Aria unconscious and the bomb still under the bus, they exit the tunnel onto a bridge, where Kinji hears helicopter blades, spotting one of his classmates, Reiki, with a sniper rifle. She takes aim and dislodges the bomb with a single bullet. It goes off while hitting the water below. Everyone is safe. Kinji goes to visit Aria in the hospital, learning that she hired Reiki, the sniper, in case anything went wrong. Kinji gives Aria the report that his fellow classmates drew up the night before, telling her that he's done after fulfilling his promise to do one job and that he's quitting the Butei. Kinji has a dream about an incident where a Butei, his brother, evacuates a cruise ship, saving the passengers but ultimately perishing with the ship. Even though the Butei had given his life to save the passengers, the media blamed the incident on him, which is why Kinji wants to quit. Kinji notices Aria while walking down the street and decides to follow her since she seems to be dressed up. Aria calls Kinji out after realizing that he's tailing her and invites him to join her. It turns out she was going to the police station. Inside, Kinji is shocked when Aria calls the prisoner she's visiting Mom. Aria becomes flustered when she asks if Kinji is her boyfriend. Aria explains that she'll catch the Butei Killer, exonerating her mother and lessening her egregious sentence. Her mother reminds her that it's too dangerous to do it alone and she must find a partner. Kinji digs into the case, discovering that Aria's mother was arrested under false pretenses, and what Aria really means when she says slave is partner. Shirayuki tells Kinji that Aria is leaving that night and flying back to London. Riko gets Kinji alone in a private room and reveals that there is a possible case that his older brother was most likely killed by the Butei Killer too. Riko teases Kinji to raise his blood pressure, making him enter hysteria mode. If his intuition is correct, Aria is in danger. Kinji rushes to the airport and boards the plane, telling the stewardess to stop the flight, but he's too late. The plane lurches forward. The captain is unable to stop. Aria berates Kinji for barging into her room while he tries to explain why he came. He will help her solve the Butei Killer case, since he promised to solve one case with her, and it hasn't been closed yet. There's an announcement over the loudspeaker. The plane has been hijacked. Aria and Kinji make their way to the bar, where they find the stewardess, but it's really Riko in disguise. It turns out that she's the descendant of an infamous French thief, Lupin. Her real name is Riko Mine Lupin IV, but no one calls her Riko. She's just a number to everyone in her family. She's the one behind all of the Butei Killer's actions. Riko wants to recreate Aria's and her great-grandfather's feud to prove that she's more than just a number by beating Aria. Riko provokes Kinji by telling him his brother is alive and is currently her lover. Riko and Aria battle it out, each wielding dual pistols. Whoever runs out of bullets first loses. Kinji has Riko beat with his butterfly knife at her neck, but Riko reveals her secret power, giving her the chance to shoot Aria point blank. Aria crumples to the ground, despite Kinji's cries. Kinji picks up an unresponsive Aria and tries to escape. He revives Aria with an adrenaline shot to the chest. Upon waking up, Aria shoves him off, calling him a pervert. When Kinji mentions Riko, she becomes enraged and draws her guns. But Kinji tries to calm her down, despite her protesting that he hates her. To prove he doesn't, Kinji kisses Aria, entering hysteria mode. Back on land, Kinji's classmates are monitoring the hijacking. They find out that Aria isn't the only Butei on the plane. A young male got through security just before takeoff. Riko goes after them. Finding Kinji alone, she launches a surprise attack. But Kinji is neither surprised nor alone. Kinji and Aria quickly disarm Riko, placing her under arrest. But Riko has different plans. She uses her strange powers, and the plane begins to lose altitude as she runs away. Kinji finds Riko, but she is surrounded by bombs, stopping him in his tracks. He didn't know she was an Esper user, a stealth-using Shutei. She was controlling the plane remotely with a device hidden in her hair. Riko brings up the IU, which Aria's mother mentioned back at the police station. But before he can get any answers out of Riko, she blows a small hole in the plane and escapes. But not before mentioning one last surprise: 2 missiles headed straight for the plane's wings. Kinji's Butei classmates are locked out of the plane's controls. It's up to Aria to fly the plane to safety. Kinji tries to hail the airport control center, but his call is intercepted by the defense force, who, along with the government, has given up on Flight 600, planning to shoot them down if they don't make an emergency landing on the Pacific Ocean. Kinji's classmates help him and Aria land the plane on one of the empty islands near the academy. Aria says goodbye to Kinji, since they have solved the Butei Killer case, and his promise has been fulfilled, until he sees a cat plushie and runs after her. Kinji asks why Riko called her Olmez, to which Aria replies that he's an idiot for not realizing that it's the French pronunciation of Holmes. She's Sherlock Holmes' great-granddaughter. Shirayuki is furious that Kinji hasn't been responding to her messages, suspecting that another girl is living with him. Well, she's half right. Aria is technically living with him, but they aren't lovers like Shirayuki suspects. But Kinji can't explain the situation to her while she and Aria battle it out. It turns out that Shirayuki is a Shute, like Riko, someone who uses Esper abilities. She's related to the maidens that tend to the Prodigy shrine, who have developed these abilities in order to protect it. The Butei school has a special SSR division dedicated to researching Esper abilities, and Shirayuki is apparently one of their best. When the two girls finally tire each other out, Kinji explains that he and Aria are just Butei colleagues, temporarily teaming up. Aria thinks Kinji has a split personality disorder and tries to train him like an animal to use his abilities on command, but Kinji's hysteria mode isn't psychological, it's an inherited trait. Aria tells Kinji that they're going to find Shirayuki's weakness when she's called to the office at school. She's been setting traps for Aria and leaving notes in her locker that say "lover thief." Sneaking through the vents, Aria and Kinji overhear a conversation between Shirayuki and her teacher about her being targeted by Durandal, someone who captures Shute, telling her she needs a bodyguard for the upcoming Adosiad events, in which Butei from around the world participate. Aria bursts through the vents with Kinji, proclaiming that she will be Shirayuki's bodyguard, for free. Shirayuki only agrees if Kinji also becomes her bodyguard and lets her live with him. Shirayuki receives a call she thinks is from Kinji while he's in the shower. She breaks into the bathroom and begins apologizing for seeing him naked, thinking it's only fair that he sees her naked to make up for it, when Aria walks through the door, seeing them in a compromising position. Kinji catches a cold after being thrown into the bay, and Aria buys more cold medicine after Shirayuki breaks the bottle. Kinji thanks Shirayuki, but she doesn't tell him she didn't buy it, and Aria refuses to say anything when he mentions it as well. Kinji gets upset with Aria when she finds him on the roof trying to hide from anything that will increase his blood pressure, which is becoming harder with all the cheerleaders getting ready for the Adosiad events. They get into an argument about the existence of Durandal when Aria tells him to check Shirayuki's messages for any threats. Aria says nobody ever believes her instincts, that she can't explain things like her great-grandfather, and Kinji ends up promising to be Shirayuki's only bodyguard, still doubting Durandal's existence. In the student council office, Kinji wonders why the president, Shirayuki, won't attend the Tokyo fireworks display with the rest of the council. Apparently, the Prodigy shrine maidens aren't allowed to leave the shrine, or school in Shirayuki's case, without permission. They live at the shrine for their entire lives. Kinji takes Shirayuki to the fireworks festival, but they don't make it in time, so he goes to a stand to buy a small firework kit to make up for it. When Shirayuki receives a message with no subject line, she doesn't mention the message to Kinji. Back at school, Kinji leaves Shirayuki alone during the Adosiad events to replace his friend Muto collecting tickets. Kinji receives a message from Shirayuki saying goodbye and that she's sorry when her teacher questions her whereabouts. She isn't at the student council tent like Kinji thought. Kinji rushes to look for Shirayuki and gets a call from Reiki, the sniper, who tells him to calm down. He's panicking, which cuts his abilities in half. She informs Kinji of Shirayuki's last known location, Equipment Storehouse Number 3. Kinji makes his way there as fast as he can, only to find it empty with an elevator leading to an underground munitions storehouse. It turns out, Shirayuki made a deal with Durandal to hand herself over in exchange for everyone else's safety. Kinji refuses to let Durandal take Shirayuki. He gets frozen to the floor by Durandal while trying to save her. Just when it looks like it's over, Aria steps in and deflects Durandal's throwing knives. Aria tells Kinji his stupidity only works to her advantage when staging a setup. She's been studying Durandal's tactics, but they weren't expecting Durandal to flood the storehouse. With Shirayuki chained to a few pipes on the wall, she'll drown if Kinji can't pick the locks in time. He kisses Shirayuki to raise his blood pressure and picks the last two locks with ease. but she gets sucked up to the floor above by the water pressure. On the upper level, Kinji notices Shirayuki. Turning to the left, he sees Aria running towards him, but it's a trap. There's piano wire at neck level. Aria is impressed that Kinji caught it and goes to help Shirayuki. Though something doesn't feel right. Kinji asks Shirayuki about her lips, but she isn't embarrassed about the kiss. Kinji tells Aria to wait, but Durandal already has a sword to Aria's throat. It was a disguise. Durandal reveals her connection to Riko, but not only that, she's a descendant of another famous historical figure, Jeanne d'Arc. Shirayuki comes to the rescue, disarming Jeanne d'Arc's descendant. Aria can barely hold her swords due to the cold, so Shirayuki uses her Hotegi powers to heal Aria's frostbitten hands. But that's not the only thing she can do with her powers. Shirayuki tells Kinji to look away. She doesn't want him to hate her after seeing her true power, but nothing could make him hate her. Shirayuki uses her hidden 2,000-year-old fire powers that have been passed down to her through the generations. It turns out she's the Hotegi Shrine's Scarlet Maiden. Aria and Kinji plan to help, but Aria needs him to trust her this time. He promises to never doubt her again. Aria charges, but Jeanne leaps over her and attacks Kinji, who catches her blade. Butei are forbidden to kill per Butei Rule 9, but Jeanne isn't. Her blade begins to ice up until Shirayuki uses the last of her fire powers to strike Durandal, the name of Jeanne's blade as it turns out, breaking the sword. Back at Kinji's, Shirayuki apologizes for lying about the cold medicine, making Aria admit to buying it. Aria gives Shirayuki an extra key card to Kinji's dorm, asking her to be her slave as well, or at least her friend. The two get into another fight over Kinji. Aria isn't the only one Kinji's kissed now. Kinji gets an invitation to the girls' dorm room from Aria, who tackles him to the bed, making him go into hysteria mode, after which he instantly recognizes that it's Riko. A furious Aria crashes through the window after being informed by their Butei classmates. But Riko doesn't plan on staying long. She uses a flashbang and escapes out the window. Kinji and Aria follow her by taking the stairs to the roof. They find out that she took a plea deal and is attending school again, so they can't harm another Butei, per their Butei rules. Riko agrees to testify in court for the crimes that were pinned on Aria's mom. She goes on to explain that after Kinji and Aria beat her, she was kicked out of the IU by Vlad the Endless Sinner, who took away her mother's rosary. Riko needs their help getting it back. They are going to become thieves. Aria explains to Kinji that they won't get arrested since they are stealing from the IU, but he still doesn't know what that means. During a test, Riko blackmails Kinji into touching her under the guise of training him to control hysteria mode. After getting caught, they share an umbrella while walking home. Riko and Kinji are confronted by a jealous Shirayuki, who attacks after Riko provokes her. Shirayuki convinces Kinji she needs to go to the nurse and uses her fire powers to melt the door handle, locking them in the office. Trying to get Kinji into bed, Shirayuki tells him she has to return to the Hotegi Shrine and won't be back for a while. But Kinji tricks her and escapes through the window. Aria and Kinji go to meet up with Riko. They draw their weapons, thinking they might be heading into a trap, only to find out that she invited them to a maid cafe. Riko explains that her mother's rosary is in Vlad's summer home, but he hasn't been there in decades, so it should be very easy to retrieve. The only people there are the house manager and the waitstaff, so to infiltrate, they will have to pose as waitstaff. Aria is totally against this plan, but Riko convinces her, since the only alternative is if she goes with Kinji alone. Riko takes them to a store dedicated exclusively to selling maid costumes and tries to get Aria to pretend Kinji is her master. It takes a while, but Riko finally manages to break Aria, who begins muttering phrases under her breath with a blank expression on her face. Close enough. Kinji is convinced to meet Riko in another room at the school for more training, without telling him exactly what she means by training. On his way there, Kinji hears someone playing the piano. It turns out to be Jeanne, who also took a plea deal to attend the Tokyo Butei Academy. Jeanne explains that Riko was kept against her will by Vlad the Endless Sinner after her parents died when she was a kid. The only chance at freedom she has is to surpass her ancestors by beating Holmes. Jeanne tells Kinji that the only way to beat Vlad, if they end up facing him, is to destroy the 4 seals on his body, but she only knows of 3. She gives him a very poor drawing of Vlad, marking their locations. When Kinji gets to the room Riko told him to go to, it turns out the girls are getting a medical checkup and are beginning to strip. He quickly hides in a locker, where he finds Muto trying to peep. Riko sends him a text to make sure he's watching when Aria shows up. Kinji goes into hysteria mode immediately upon seeing Aria strip. Reiki figures out the boys are watching and opens the locker when a Caucasian silver wolf comes crashing through the window, baring its teeth. Kinji tackles the wolf, who then attacks the teacher and runs away. To go after the wolf, Muto gives Kinji the keys to his motorcycle, which he hid to escape after peeping. Reiki hops on the bike, since Kinji won't be able to track the wolf alone. Kinji and Reiki are led by the wolf to a construction site. Kinji follows the wolf into an unfinished high-rise, where the wolf runs and jumps over Kinji to escape. But Reiki is in another building with the wolf in her sights. She shoots and misses, or at least it looks like she does. Instead, she grazes the wolf, paralyzing it. Reiki catches up to it and tames the wolf so she can keep it as a Butei dog. After a week of Riko training Aria as a maid, they're ready to go undercover. Waiting for the train, Kinji is surprised when Riko shows up disguised as someone named Kana, but he refuses to explain to Aria why it upsets him. They arrive at the mansion, only to discover that the house caretaker is really their teacher, Mr. Sayanaki. He's looking after the house since the owner lets him use the research facility in the basement. Aria and Kinji go about their chores. They'll only be there for 2 weeks to case the joint and pull off the heist. Jean's picture falls out of Kinji's pocket, and Aria learns about Vlad's weak spots. After a week, Aria learns that Riko's rosary is in the basement, like she said. Apparently, the rosary is heavily guarded by both pressure and laser sensors. The plan is simple. Aria will distract Mr. Sayanaki while Kinji breaks into the basement. During dinner one night, they learn that Mr. Sayanaki speaks Romanian, so he can communicate with the mansion's owner when he refers to his genetically modified roses in Romanian. Sayanaki names them after Aria, since he's impressed she caught his Romanian. They plan the heist for the last afternoon. Aria distracts Mr. Sayanaki in the garden while Kinji breaks into the basement. Things were going well until Aria couldn't keep Mr. Sayanaki distracted anymore. Their comms link goes dark for a second. Then, Kinji hears Aria hit on Mr. Sayanaki, promising to let Kinji do whatever he wants to her afterwards, which makes him go into hysteria mode. But it was actually Riko pretending to be Aria the whole time. Kinji successfully steals the rosary, and he and Aria meet up with Riko later on a rooftop. Now that she has her rosary back, Riko stops pretending to be nice. She kisses Kinji to make him go into hysteria mode again, then promises to beat them so she can live up to her family name and stop being merely a number. It turns out that the rosary is the Lupin family's secret treasure, which she kept in her mouth during her captivity. It's what gives Riko her powers. But before Riko can attack, someone tases her from behind. It's Mr. Sayanaki, who begins beating Riko while she's down. He's been collecting the genes of important bloodlines throughout the years to create a biological effigy, a sort of human mask to hide who he really is, Vlad, the Endless Sinner. Mr. Sayanaki transforms into a giant wolf-like beast with 3 markings on his body, just like Jean said. Aria figures out that Vlad is really Dracula. He's been using the blood to assimilate various powers from human genes for hundreds of years. Riko tells him that the 4th spot is the center of Vlad's chest. Kinji tells Aria that they hit all 4 spots, but it's not enough. Riko was mistaken. Vlad roars and snaps Kinji out of hysteria mode, sending him flying over the edge of the building. Riko jumps over the side after him, using her Esper powers to save him with her parachute. Kinji convinces her to turn back and help him save Aria by telling Riko that beating Vlad would prove that she's not just a number after all. Riko uses Aria to get Kinji back into hysteria mode. They each have 1 bullet left in their guns, making 4 in total. Instead of aiming directly at his last weak spot, Kinji bounces a bullet off another to get past his defenses. It's a hit. Vlad goes down. His last weak spot was in his mouth, on his tongue. Kinji figured out the location of his 4th weak spot when Vlad protected his mouth from being shot, which is odd for someone who can heal almost instantly. Riko agrees to testify in court like she promised, but it doesn't mean that she and Aria aren't still rivals. Aria receives a call the next day, confirming that Riko was telling the truth, and is overjoyed that her mom now has the chance for a retrial. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.